We just start going for it. So what motivates us into action? That's one of the thoughts that I've been having lately. When I look at the stuff I want to accomplish in my life, the less resistance, the less struggle I have, and the faster I can get into action, the more successful I'll be. I'll be able to accomplish more things. But I do have to rest, and I have all those other things. But I wonder, like, do you ever use excuses to not do what you want to do? I know I have. So let's say you got something, say get up in the morning, wake up, stretch, maybe go to the gym, and you have something that stops you from doing that. You have an excuse, you have a reason. I call that the release process. You release into being into action, that release into flow. You're not hitting that, so you're going in the other direction. So if you're doing it there, where else are you doing it? Are you doing it with your clients, with your family, with your friends, saying you want to do something that you really, really want to do, but you're not doing it? You're not finding yourself into action. So I'm real curious about what the moments that lead us into action are, like the moments right before we actually go into action. Think about it. Like if you're skiing, you go to the top of you're on a ski lift and you get to the top of the hill, top of the mountain, and then you go to the edge and you kind of look down, but there's that moment, that absolute moment that you tip your skis down, and then you're going, you're in action, you're in flow. And I think life is like that a lot of times we're like 99% in, 98% in, 90% in. There's a huge difference between 100% and 99.9% in. 99.9, we struggle. We give ourselves reasons. We're thinking about it. We're fighting ourselves with the promises that we made or the agreements that we made, right? So have you ever had that happen to you? I'm real interested in that, and I'd like you to comment and like and share this video. So what are the thoughts that we have right before we move into action? That's something else I want to talk to these guys about. So I've got Kim Glass, I got Patrick Carney, and I got Lynda Sunshine West with me tonight. One of the other gentlemen, Rich Fontaine, couldn't make it. He had something that came up. So we just want to wish him well. He's in great shape. He just had something he had to take care of. So in the curiosity theory, we talk about feelings. What are the feelings you have right before you get into action? What are those feelings? What's that like right before you tip them skis and you go down? What's it like when you're getting out of bed and you have a feeling that's like, oh God, all right. And then you go run, you go do all those things you have to do, right? So tonight we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to bring my guests on right now. So, hey guys, how you doing?
Hey. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
So I want to you kind of heard what I was talking about, but I would like to take a couple minutes and have you guys introduce yourself. So I guess Lynda was talking about the Brady Bunch. So, so up in the top, what is it, the top left corner, Kim Glass, please introduce yourself. And thank you for being able to make it at the last minute.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Kim Glass. I am from the Dallas, Texas area, living in Houston. I'm a soft skills consultant, speaker, and award-winning speaker and best-selling author.
That's awesome. Patrick, how you doing, brother? Tell us about yourself.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Carney. I am an artist. I paint portraits of rock and roll stars for a living, and I have been running a mastermind every Tuesday morning for the last 40 years.
40 years. Well, hold on a second. I gotta do this. 40 years. No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's all in person up until February, when we had to go to Zoom. It's the first time we've been on Zoom.
That's amazing. Lynda, how you doing, honey? Tell us about yourself, please.
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm Lynda Sunshine West, and I'm a collaboration strategist. So what that is someone who brings people together and helps them to strategize about how they can forward their business, and I help them to do that as well. So I do that with collaboration books. I do that with my podcast, my show. I have a magazine coming out, and I also have a show, like a 24/7 show that's in the works right now.
That's amazing. You got a magazine. So let's talk about action then.
Women action takers.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about that. Like, so, what is it? What is that moment that you have? Like, what is that moment, if you can define it? What happens in those moments right before you actually are in action, when you're thinking about it, when you're contemplating it, when it's right there?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question, because on Monday last week, I was on a call. It was a group call, a coaching call. And something like an epiphany came to me during the call. Oftentimes when we are talking to other people, we have epiphanies. So I had this epiphany. I was like, ooh, should I mention it out loud? Because if I mention it out loud, it means I might have to move into action, right? And I said, you know what? I'm going to mention it out loud. So I mentioned my idea out loud and everybody loved it. But I was the one that was going to have to implement. So sometimes we have ideas and we don't implement, right? So what is it that makes us actually move these things into action? And in this particular instance, that I'm describing, what moved me into action was, first I had a thought, and then I voiced it vocally to other people. So now I'm being looked at, right? And I have these people who are looking to see, is she really going to do what she said? And I wasn't consciously thinking about that, because I knew I was going to do what I said. But now I took the action the next morning. It was immediately that next morning. And everybody's like, wow, that's so cool. You acted on that. Now, what's really interesting is today I saw somebody, they said, I thought about that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But they didn't take the action. So what was the difference between that I decided to take the action and that they didn't take the action? Is it commitment? Is it fear? There's so many different elements that could be involved. I made a commitment and I did it.
I like that. If you talk about accountability, when the whole idea of accountability is when you say something, you honor your word. So whatever you say, because you put it out there, now it's just part of your integrity. It's part of honoring your word. What do you think, Kim?
I so agree. I often say a lot of times I see people hesitating because they don't know the clear path. And so I often say, you just say yes and you figure it out. Just get started. And it's just like you were talking about skiing. Once you're up on that peak and your skis are tilted and you push off, you are in the flow to get down that mountain. And it's the same thing when we're looking to take action. If we hesitate, it's going to take us longer, because then our thought process kicks in. But if we say yes and figure it out, we have a higher chance of, crossing the finish line with that goal.
Yeah. What about you, Patrick? What do you think about that?
Well, I love pressure, and I feel that pressure is actually possibility in disguise. And so the power of that intention works magically. You never actually finish on the right action that we're going to take, because action produces more action.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say it. So what you're saying, I just want to know, you're saying if my intention was to get this done, but as I move forward on that, there were so many other things that were created, and I chose another path. It was that maybe times 10. Yeah,
absolutely. And the mentors in your life give you feedback that creates a lot of those different variables or road pathways that we can take.
Say that a different way, please.
What my intention is to have mentors in my life. And I go to those mentors for all sorts of different things. Like if we look at Tiger Woods in his prime, he had 9 mentors on Team Tiger for every aspect, from his game to all mind, everything was all in that.
Everything, yeah.
Everything. And so the same thing, I attempt to repeat that myself and have mentors that I can approach when I have a new idea or I'm going to implement something. And that power is the new math.
What were you like before? What were you like before you thought of getting a mentor? What was Patrick's life like when you had an idea of something you wanted to do?
I was a pure New Yorker, so we went ahead blind, and I met Charlie Tremendous Jones at an art show. He came to one of my art shows in 1980, and he changed everything. So he gave me my first copy of Think and Grow Rich and encouraged me to start the mastermind.
Wow, that's great. And is that part of what helped you be in action?
Yes.
Or were you, okay.
All of that, and it's being in a mastermind creates subtle accountability And when we have that accountability, we actually take action all the time.
Oh, Martine's gone. Okay, but we're still here. So
Yeah, we're still here.
We're still here. We got this. Yeah, I agree with you, because that accountability, like leading my mastermind, I did it for 6 years, which was just awesome to do it, because not only when you lead something, oftentimes you're directing people, but I was also learning so much from the people in my mastermind. You, Patrick, by doing that for 40 years, how have your members in your mastermind led to you learning and growing from them?
Well, ours is based on a hot seat, and we have the hot seats each and every week. And there has never been a hot seat that I've participated in, whether it's mine or guesting at other masterminds, where I haven't gotten an aha or a nugget, that great nugget that I can use, or where I say to myself, oh my God, I used to do that. That worked. Why am I not doing that now and implement it? And as you know, running a mastermind, when the hot seat goes the way it should go, we're sitting 6 feet off the ground. I mean, and the flow of it and the intensity is unbelievable, because the other members empower us to take action.
That's for sure. I totally agree. I know Martine's not here, so I'm going to flip it a little bit here, because Kim has a background that, Kim, I hope you're okay. Well, you talk about this all the time. So she has a background. It's something she didn't mention. And the experience that Kim had growing up, when she left the situation she was in, I'll have her share what that is. But when she left that situation, it really took taking an action that was so different than generations before. So Kim, I would love for you to share your, a little bit of your story, and what made you decide, because we're talking about action today, right? What made you decide to take that action, and how did you have the confidence to take that action?
Thank you, Lynda. So my story is, I know how it feels to live in fear. I was born and raised 4th generation in a religious cult. And through that process, there was so much fear. I lost myself, I lost my parents, and just out of fear. And so what I learned in that process, as I grew older, I had these, what I call mini awakenings. And the biggest awakening came on 9/11, as I was watching the news and thinking to myself, life is too short to be this miserable and to be fearful of people that I grew up to love and adore and appreciate. However, they took a turn for darkness and evil. And because of that, I just remember sitting there thinking, if I don't take action, this is not going to change. And guess what? I had a daughter by now. So I had to protect my daughter. And I often say, when my reason for fearless freedom started screaming louder than my fear, it moved me into action. And it wasn't just action, it was massive action. That happened on September 11. And by March, just a few months after that, I was totally out of that situation and was making plans and actually moved away, and actually even closer to my own work. And so, for 25 years, I drove 2 hours each way to work, because we had to live in that city because of that religious cult and their demands. And so, to me, there's nothing more freer than, to me, when you're free is when you take soul ownership and responsibility, and you get to choose exactly what you want to create. And so for me, I've always been an action taker, but there were times along that journey that I hesitated because of other people's opinions. And I think that's when a lot of people get stuck. And I also got stuck in a period of my health. And so when you start getting stuck and you start trying to work through it in your head, I call that mental court. When you start this ping pong thing, when you're in mental court, you're gonna get stuck because you're not taking action. And so that was my experience and how I learned to move through that because of it. And now I get to help people, and it's just the most rewarding thing that through me sharing my story, there's people out there in similar situations that are getting stuck in life, and it's all around the basis of fear. So how do we overcome that? And it's through courage and taking massive action.
Oh, you're muted, Martine. Okay, so can read his lips. He's having challenges today.
Having all kinds of challenges.
There we go. You're back. Yay!
Oh, all right. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. But, Kim, so I love you said so much stuff, and it's so golden. So when you were in that situation and you had to leave, like September 11th, I think you said you left, right? What was the? I heard you say the motivator, but we'll talk just a little bit deeper about that motivator if you can.
So by September 11, the world was going through a big change.
Uh-huh.
And I had this big awakening in my own personal life. If anything was going to be changed in that situation, I had to take action. And so I started.
So I'm going to interrupt you because
Sure.
I want to dig into what you're talking about. So the awakening, what was the awakening like for you? What was that?
It was just
the action part. What was the awakening like for you?
It was just the thought that came into my mind. If anything's going to be changed, it's dependent on me to figure out what I need to do to make that change.
Isn't that and I love that. And that reality, that little moment, that little light bulb, right?
Yes.
Really doesn't exist out there as much as we would think it exists. A lot of people think something else has got to happen for me to do what I want to do.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that, Patrick?
Well, I like to think that we have communicators in our life that push us in those directions. I believe, in my heart of hearts, there were communicators around her that guided her.
Nice. Okay.
Whatever that might have been. It could be an actual person. It could have been her intuition. It could have been her upbringing. Even though the upbringing was hard, there might have been some little communications that came along that pushed her, because I believe if the people in our lives aren't pushing us and our intuition isn't pushing us to take action, then we have to actually get new people.
So you're subscribing to my environment, my community is gonna be one of the biggest determiners. It's gonna be one of the biggest, places to feed for me to be in action. Why is that? How does that work? How do you use that?
I believe, this came from, I think, in this case, Greg Reed. He said something to the effect that we either rise or lower ourselves to the average of the 6 people we hang around with the most. So if you want to be a millionaire, you got to hang around with millionaires. If you want to be a great writer, you got to hang around writers. If you want to be a great artist, you got to hang around, artists. And so I've subscribed to that. I never knew it as that till 15 years ago, the first time I heard it. However, I really believe in that.
So were you probably doing it? Were you probably doing it and you didn't know you were doing it?
In a way, however, not consciously. And when I got it consciously, it changed everything, because I have learned, we changed up the mastermind a little bit a few, I guess it's about 8 years ago. And I decided to have a follow-up for the hot seat. For each person who was on a hot seat, have a 15-minute follow-up. So it gave me an extra hour that I needed to fill. So I started asking, the top speakers and whatnot in the world to come on the mastermind and speak every on 2 Tuesdays a month.
Yeah.
And I have invited 169 speakers, different speakers, and 167 have shown up.
Wow.
And we're talking, you know, the top of the top, the cream.
Yeah, I know some of the people that showed up there.
Okay.
That's big time, yeah, big time.
What we learned from that, you know, and Kim could back me up, Lynda could back me up on this, is that we've been taught that we can't access those people. However, I've found that the bigger they are, the more accessible they are. It's like the pretty girl that stays home on Friday night in high school because she's not asked out because all the fellas are afraid to ask out. All you have to do is have your ass in gear.
Yeah. Ass in gear. I like that. I like that. So, okay. So my whole idea is curiosity. And I'll tell you something, you just gave me a different way to look at it. I was just like being curious about what you were talking about. And you actually gave me a whole different way to look at action, because I've been sourcing action from inside. I've been, you know, but I didn't realize, or I maybe hadn't acknowledged how much of that I'm pulling from the outside. Like, I know I want it in here so that I can be accountable for my word. I know I could do what I say I'm going to do, and I say big things to do. Then I'm kind of building muscles by, you know, reading books, you know, reading the books I'm reading, listening to the audios I'm reading, you know, going in the masterminds that I go into, talking to the people that I talk to. And it sounds to me like you've tapped into that. Like, no, like this is mentors, people that know what they're doing, people that have blazed the trail. Surround yourself by, you know, people that are successful. If that's what you want to be an oil baron, probably should hang out with people that are oil barons, right?
Yes. And that's the success of a mastermind or a power partner group or whatever that you might want to call it. Because like in my case, there's 12 members. There's not just 12 members in the room. There's every sibling, every parent, every teacher, every professor, every book you've read, every seminar you've been to, on and on and on. So 1 and 1 is 3, 1 and 1 is 30, 1 and 1 is 3,000.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing. And that's where that influence comes for us to take action. It's the synergy of all of that in one room.
Yeah. Sounds to me like, yeah, it's an accountability. It's like changing the level at which you speak. Like these are the words I used to use. And what do you think about that, Kim? These are the words I used to use. Things changed. I said, you know what? I'm out of here. September 13th, I'm out. To stay in action requires a different language than it requires to get into action. Would you agree?
Yes.
Like, so to get in action, you had to, you know, what caused you to get out of there was one thing, but now you're out. So what was that like? Like in those moments, like now, how were you in action at that moment that you were actually finally out? Because that was a whole different thing.
So when I was finally out, it was like a bird out of a cage, right? It's kind of like when we find that thing that makes our heart sing in our business. It's like, wow, I found that thing that I'm so passionate about that other people are looking for. And so it's the same analogy. Like I used to say, oh, I'm a bird and I'm hanging on by this twig. And then another day comes and it's like one of those feet comes off the branch. And so it was a process of when that second foot got off the branch, I was flying and I was free from it. And it was in that quick second that all of that was so far behind me, where it was times where I'd look back and think, oh my God, I was in that for 35 years.
When you were looking back.
Yes, it was like two ways of looking back. And then it was like, oh my gosh, that seems so long ago.
No, I got that. You know? So what was actually, let me change the direction. So thank you. I had a different question, but I did not word the question. Like, so that's on me. So
I'll let you reword it. I'll try to answer better.
So action requires change. Like, you know, you're is it a cult, right? You're in a cult. Yes. Or yeah. So you're in, and then and you operate based on that way. Now you change. The change requires action, right? The moment of change is action, is an action, and then now you're in a different place, which requires a different set of actions. Lynda, you've done that. You went from corporate burn the bridges, burn the boats, everything went all in, right? Like,
Yeah.
what was that like? How do you describe action in when you're doing something like that?
Well, for something like that, I had been in corporate for 36 years and I had 49 jobs. So I was always in action, with different jobs and always leaving what I didn't like. And what was interesting is, as I look back on my life, is like, how many more times did I do that kind of thing, not with just a job, but with relationships, with moving and all these different things. And it pointed all back to when I was 5 years old. When I was 5 years old, I ran away and I was gone for a week. And if it were up to me, I would have been gone forever. If it were up to me.
If it was up to me.
Yeah, well, because my mom knew where I was. I didn't know she knew where I was. So, but that's when my running away started. I was in a very abusive, volatile, alcoholic household with my dad. And I was like, at 5, like, I'm not living here anymore. I'm going to move. So I moved to the neighbor's house, but
yeah, it's that moment of awakening that Patrick said. It's the decision. It's the realization.
The decision for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I've learned about myself is I think I've like Kim, she says she's always been an action taker, right? I mean, that's kind of evidenced right there. At 5 years old, you run away. Like, people talk about running away, or people talk about I ran away for an hour, but I was gone for an entire week. 7 days I was gone. My mom called up the neighbor and said, okay, she's been gone long enough. You can send her home now. So I came back home with my tail between my legs and my head bent down. And I was no longer this brave, strong little girl anymore. I sunk into this state of fear the rest of my time, around my dad, even until he died, But for me, action is about, it's making a conscious decision and just doing it. It's not thinking about it, planning it, and like doing, like, I'm not a research person. I'm a jumper. When I left my corporate job after 36 years and, working in corporate, I was just like, I'm leaving, and I left. And I didn't look back. I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to make any money. That didn't matter to me. I knew what I was not going to do. And I was not going to drive myself to work anymore, where I was so extremely unhappy, driving myself to what I called my own personal prison that I built for myself. Because I built where I was working. I was working for a judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So it was a big job in my industry, So I built that prison. And so when I was like, I let that key loose, I'm like, dang, I'm going to do whatever I want. Whatever I want. It was that freedom you were talking about, Kim. Big time.
I love it. So action is there's all these different ways to describe action, like being in action, freedom, we're keeping your word, all this stuff. And before I would call myself a liar, so I couldn't count on my word. And as I stop lying, as I start to be more accountable to my word, give my word, and then do what I say, actions follow that. It's like magic. Like, your word is really all there is to cause action. We're just telling stories, right? But really, what is it? What's the common denominator is our word, what we say. We have to speak it into action, in our head. If it's the kind of action we're talking about, like making things happen. I'm not talking about, just walk across the room, unconscious things. I'm talking about very, very conscious stuff. So I'm going to ask you to take a look at something you're up to that's really a challenge for you, something that's like in your face. You don't necessarily have to tell us what that is, but what's that like to you? What's the biggest challenge you have in front of you? What's that like for you as an experience of emotion, if you have something big? Do you want me to go first, or you want to?
I have something really big that just came up yesterday. And I sometimes think, like, I will go second guess myself, right? Why do I do this to myself? Well, so like I mentioned earlier, the magazine, which hasn't come out yet, I want to do this 24-hour show. That's a huge undertaking, right? So now I'm starting to think, well, how am I going to make this happen? What do I need to put into place? Because I can't do this all myself. It's impossible, virtually impossible. So what I did is I gave myself a task that is so impossible for me to reach, to make sure that I move into the space that I want to move into, which that is the space of being a true leader, by leading a huge team that does this. And so what I did is I picked something that was so astronomical that it would force me to move into that space I want to be in.
So let me kind of go back. I kind of like penciled it out for me, and I'm thinking about the curiosity theory. So just to be real curious about what you said. So you have an idea of an action, like whatever that action is. And then what almost immediately happens, in your words, you said a second guess. You said like you second guess. So we as human beings, we start to then convince ourselves not to do those things. Patrick, does it ever happen with you with art that you have that kind of some kind of like idea and then you back out of it?
Sure. That happens typically when the project, like say a commission, and when you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, it's not in integrity with who you are. And so I have to stop and actually, it's only happened twice. However, both times I didn't do the project, and it would have been well worth the money. However, it's not about the money. It really is about the creativity. It's really about the expression. And the coolest thing, looking back at what Lynda has said and Kim has said, is that when we look at one thing differently, or we learn something different around an action or whatever it might be, everything changes. We look at everything differently because of that one change. And so what I'm working on right now, which is extremely difficult at my age, in my 70s, is I'm eliminating words from my vocabulary, and they're banned words in the mastermind. And so when I hear them from other people, it's really, really challenging for me not to say something or to call them out on it. And we introduced a new word. I've heard the words from you guys, yes. And because in 1947, the American education system was changed, and I believe they put certain words in to make 99% worker bees and only 1% people to actually take the action and have the money. Well, how has that worked out? So we really need to change and create new pathways for action from the individuals that are in our life.
Yeah. Well, I'd answer the question. For the people that put the books together, it worked out really good for them, probably. For the other 99.9%, it's not working out very good.
Right.
And what I hear you saying is we need to take out the words that are stuck in that like shoulds and there's words. I've seen a list of some words, but we take words out and then we add words in. We redistinguish, we create new words, and those new words have new meanings. And because we don't have some of the other words, these new words, these new distinctions, they flow much easier because there's not the resistance.
Yeah, and there's so many words that were put in that derive from the word lack. And it's I mean, like the word try is not in 29 other languages. Why is it in ours? They don't want us to succeed.
Absolutely. And words are everything. Words are everything. Everything we do is through language.
Yeah.
How has your language, Kim, how has your language changed? Like, how did you see an immediate change in your language? How was it changed?
It was really interesting because in the way that I grew up in that situation, it was very compartmentalized, if that makes sense. So it was more about the things you couldn't do, you shouldn't do, the bad things that you should not be involved in. But I had a life outside of that. I mean, I worked in corporate America for over 25 years. And through that process, I really started figuring out that I was really being lied to, because it wasn't just that group of 200 people that were really good people in this entire world, and so I had an outside view of the real world, and that there were good people outside of that. And I've always been a positive person, even being in that situation. I just couldn't always show it there, or I couldn't share my opinion for retaliation. And so to be on the other side of that, I speak what I'm seeking, and I've always seen opportunities. And by taking those steps and saying yes and figuring it out, I was on a national book tour up until the COVID situation. And I knew that there were still opportunities out there. I just had to pivot how I was reaching people and staying connected with people. And thank goodness for, this type of technology that, has been there for us and that I had been using. And so I think even in life, change is not a bad thing. I'm a walking testament to that change is a freeing thing, and it's a great thing. And the quicker that we are in taking action and pivoting, the better that we are to have that next path unfold.
Was change something that wasn't a pleasant thing prior?
Not in my growing up situation, because like Patrick was saying, there was a programming, and you were programmed in what you spoke and what you thought and how you treated people, and it didn't matter if people were being bullied or whatever. That was the programming. But I had a life outside of that with my work that I think that's why in the Dallas area, I'm known as the people person, because I saw people mistreated in a so-called religious setting, that the mathematics of that did not work for me. And as I grew older, I really got my critical thinking on of, this is what I've been programmed to believe, but this is not working for me. And I'm not going to sit back and let the same thing happen to me that happened between me and my parents, and not able to see them for 8 years. And so when my daughter turned 5, I was like, that's it. They're not touching my kid. They're not going to do this to my kid and go through the same repeated pattern. And so I took action on that download of, this shall not be. I'm doing something different. And guess what? I'm an adult and I can do that. I was no longer a kid in that situation. And so, just maturing and really looking at things of, like I said, the programming that I was in, and then really, like what's really all this about? And I really got aware of when I felt fear, and I stopped myself, and I was like, why am I fearing that? That's crazy, but getting in tune with myself, and just, it's like an onion where you start peeling back the layers of what someone else has tried to put on you that has absolutely nothing to do with you. It didn't originate with me. It had really nothing to do with me. And so when you can start peeling that labor.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Sorry.
Sure.
So I want to go way back, because like I said, you guys all say a lot of golden stuff, and then it's like, I want to go back and talk about that. So you were living a life, and I think this is what Patrick was saying. It's kind of all tying in together, and I love this. So we grow up in cultures. We grow up in the cultures all have conversations. They all have language that they use. We all say things in our cultures, and those things name foods, they name spices, they name drinks, it's how we describe each other, how we describe the tall people, the short people, the white people, the skinny, all those. We have those words, and all that comes together and creates a culture. And the culture, a lot of cultures say, don't change. Don't do anything about this. This is perfect. You need to leave it just like this. And there's pressures around that. I don't think you need to be in a cult or to have been in a cult to know that your culture wants to be the culture. It wants to stay the culture. And we'll fight for the culture. We'll fight for the status quo. That's what I notice. And the reason we seek mentors, we seek leaders, we seek bigger conversations is because at some point the status quo doesn't work anymore. So when I hear Patrick talking about, did you say 12 mentors or something? When I hear, like you talk about the people that you surround yourself with, does everybody represent something that you want? Do they, and that's the question for Patrick and all three of you guys, but specifically Patrick, I'd like him to start. Are you seeking like a new way of contextualizing things when you're meeting with mentors or you're creating a mastermind?
Yeah, you could state it that way. What we're attempting to do is create and have an understanding or a language that we could all run on that is different than the one we're currently running on. Because the mind will always believe everything you tell it. Mm-hmm. So we need to feed it positivity. We need to feed it faith. We need to feed it truth. We need to feed it love so that we as human beings change for the better. We I love my culture that I grew up in.
That New York culture.
However, the challenge is we need to travel.
Yeah.
The New York guys. And Irishman on top of that. So, you add that in. And, so there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of fighting. There's all sorts of things that go on in that, you know. And to grow as a human being, we have to get out of that locked in and create a synergy through, like what we're just talking about, 12 mentors. The 12 mentors give us a synergy of understanding, give us distinctions, give us keys to life. And those are the things that we're attempting to bring into that room or bring it into our lives. And so obviously, over the period of time, it's not been the same people. We bring in individuals that are going to change. Thing right now, one of the gifts of, if you can say, about this period of time and the challenges we're going through, is I can bring people in now from anywhere in the world. Like what Kim was just talking about. We pivoted, and we all have to pivot right now to change and do things which we've never done.
Yeah.
And I mean, like where I made my money was showcasing my art at concerts. Well, there are no more concerts. Yeah. Okay, so I got to pivot. I got to change. And, so in order to do that, we have to go and find other mentors. Because one of the things you learn, if you really learn it, you should learn it young. They should teach it in the schools, is that do what you know how to do and hire what you suck at.
So what we're talking about, this conversation I thought was going to go in one direction. I thought that I was thinking of action as like movement. Like that was my thought, like movement. Like I used to do this, now I do that. I used to do this, now I do that. Tell me how you did that. And what I'm getting from all of you, thank you very, very much, is it happens in me giving my word, me looking at my situation, me being aware of the situation, the people I surround myself with, how they can then add to how I think, how they can contribute to it. And then I may have thought I was going to go down this way. I'm still going down that way. But now the possibilities, like you said, Patrick, you said something about, you love pressure because it's possibility in disguise.
Yeah. I am more prolific now than I've ever been in my life.
What do you mean?
I turn out more artwork now than I've ever turned out in my life.
Wow.
And that was even going into COVID. The last few years have been, prolific, I think, because, you start thinking about mortality and, how many years do you have left? So how much time do you have to create? How much time, so you start to really, there's so many things up here. And I figured that I have to live to 121 to get it all out. Just what I'm thinking about now.
That's awesome. And if your plan's right, by the time you're a year later from now, you're going to have to live to 150.
Right. Because, so massive action must be taken. So yes, we need the mentors. However, we need the synergy of also taking action at the same time. I mean, I would never say sit.
Yeah, I bet we know that as kids. I bet we know that as kids. I bet we know that like when we get into action, more stuff happens. And maybe somewhere along the line, we start to, I don't know, put our own blocks up. We start to create it. We start to say, hey. And then we start to create this whole new way of being that is maybe two different lanes. Kind of like Kim was living in the corporate life that was telling her one thing, and she was living with the cult that was telling her a whole different thing. And
right. So if I could say that,
yeah.
it's not us. It's the environment. It's the parents. It's the aunts. It's the uncles. It's the teachers. They create that. They're the naysayers.
Yeah.
I can tell you how many people in my life told me, you know, starving artist. I mean, I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
You know, and so Picasso said, you know, I'm always adding what I cannot do.
Well, what was the quality about you? What's the quality about you that you weren't willing to accept that, or that you could hear it and you could still stay powerful? That's actually two different questions. So what was the first? I want to actually answer for both of them. So the first one is, shoot, I forgot. I hope you remember.
Well, the thing about me was that the passion was there for creation. Okay. And I was able through creation to change people's lives through the creativity. You know, like say I'd meet someone that didn't think they were beautiful, and I painted them, and they got to see themselves for the very first time. I changed a life. And one of the coolest things I used to do is I took a train from Westchester County, New York, into the School of Visual Arts every day. It was an hour ride on the train. And I used to draw somebody on that train every morning.
Whoa.
And I would drop the drawing on their lap and say, call me, and just phone number. I got 100% calls.
Wow.
100%.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So the character was, what was your character? What is your character what would you call if you could name your character that has you be this way?
Well, really, it is the passion. It really comes down to the passion. It's
okay. So the characteristic is passion. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask Kim and Lynda as well. And how did you live through the doubt? How did you live through that? Like, what was the thing that you said to yourself, or that you lived through the doubt?
Well, the greatest thing was, you know, my mother was a single parent. My father died when I was 7. I was the oldest of 6, and so that was quite the journey. And she supported each and every one of us in our endeavors. Mm-hmm. So me becoming an artist was not a problem to my mother. She encouraged it. She sent me to art school, and all of the different things that it took. You know, and she was my best critic.
Mm.
You know, I mean, I do something really what I thought was great. She'd not tear it apart, but she'd pick things out.
I've got a constructive criticism for you, honey.
You know, and so that actually sent me into many seasons of consecutive wins.
So the love, so it was passion, and then I would call it, what you said was love and support from your mother, and the belief, like there was an agreement of belief, like, hey, you can do this. That's what I want to do. You can do anything you want, honey.
Yeah, and then there's, you know, that life is a team sport. And I had 2 art teachers, one in high school, one at university, that really, really took me under the wing and guided me. So they were really my first mentors.
That's cool. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to ask Lynda to answer this question. What if you had people that it didn't occur for you that they loved you and they supported you, and they didn't tell you that you were going to, like, yeah, it's great. That's a great idea. Go be a dancer. Go be, go do this. Go be an artist. Go be a lawyer, whatever. Because it happens like for the tough stuff too. Go be a lawyer. Oh, you can never be a lawyer. You're not smart enough. Or, it happens at intersect. So Lynda, what would you say to somebody, or have ever had experience like that, as somebody saying, no, you can't. No, it's not in you.
Well, unfortunately, I experienced a lot of that. My first 51 years of my life, I experienced the residuals of that as a child. So not only like growing up in the abusive alcoholic environment, did I experience that on a regular basis, but also my first husband, I married somebody just like my dad, my first marriage. So on a daily basis, I was told how stupid and ignorant I am, and that people are only nice to you because they feel sorry for you. Unfortunately, I believed all of that stuff for my first 21 years of my life. And so it stuck with me until I got into this new world. You know, when I went to Secret Knock my first time, that's where I met Martine, was my first Secret Knock event. And when I went to Secret Knock, this is where my light bulb went off. And I was like, wow, I don't have to be that way anymore. I could choose to be something different. And I went on that path and that journey of choosing to be a positive person. I used to be extremely judgmental. You know, I don't like judgment. I hate it. But I used to be one of those people. I was judgmental about everything. I was mean to people. Like, that was my environment. You know, like, I grew up in that environment, and that's what I was. I was a product of my environment, like Patrick was mentioning. And so now I'm a product of my environment, a product of positive, motivational people, inspiring people. That's what I'm a product of. And so I've become that because I've hung out with that, and that's what I choose to be.
What would
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
What would you identify as a word your character, the character quality that you like instill the most?
I would say probably if I had to choose one, it would be curious, because I am a very curious person. I've interviewed hundreds of people, and I realize that it's because of my curiosity that's what makes me a good interviewer, because I'm actually listening to the words they're saying, right? And I'm also listening to the words they're not saying.
Yeah.
And it's because of my curiosity. I used to be called a nosy person. You're a busybody. You ask too many questions, and not realizing that, like they said, in a bad way, right? But now people are like, you ask these great questions. Thank you so much. Will you interview me? You know, so it's like, wow. Just like totally flipped the same exact thing that I was doing before, just flipped on its head, and seeing it for the positive that it is.
But it sounds to me like, you know, we have qualities, and those qualities are going to be looked at by other people, however they choose to look at those things. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong. If we give into, you know, and Patrick's mom said, great idea. You know, she loved you, supported you, she believed in you. And as a result, you have achieved what you've achieved. And people have the opposite, but yet they achieve. And it sounds like there's a choice at some point, like if you may have something against you, like that's working against you, that the thing you said, the word that you said was choice. Like, you made the choice. You're going to decide. You're going to choose your reality. It might not occur that way, but I'm going to work toward that reality. That's what I try to do. I said, this is the way I want it to be. How about you, Kim? What do you do?
I think self-leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When I got moved out of my home by the cult leaders while my parents were away, I remember standing on the drive at my sister's house, who I'd moved in with, and I thought, you know what? It's all on me, you know? So I have to find the work, I have to have the income. And along that, I've always been, like Lynda said, the curiosity factor and continuous improvement have been really big themes in my life, and also helping other people. And I like to say the word brave. And that's a great acronym for me. The B is believe in yourself. The R is roadmap yourself to where you want to go. The A is believing in your abilities or learning new abilities. The V is views. The only focus really is your goals. And the E is expectations. You have to forget about everybody else's expectations for your life and make those expectations for yourself. And you know, when you have inner peace and know who you are and you operate from that core, there's nothing that brings more freedom to your life, I believe, than having those all working together for you.
I love it. We're gonna wrap up right now, and I'm gonna ask you to tell everybody about yourself. But I just kind of want to first off, thank you guys for showing up and just being willing to just go in the directions you're going, and then and the contribution that you guys have made for me today. looking at action as in a completely different way, 3 completely different ways. And I want to thank you guys for that. So thanks for being here. Kim, tell us a little bit about what you do. And I know you did before, but do you have any programs or anything right now, anything you're doing that people can get a hold of you or become a part of?
Sure. So I help people bring their business and voice, what I call from a whisper to roar. So
Wow.
really trying to figure out who they are, how they express themselves, and how that kind of brands them and their business. So helping people, a lot of times we don't know who we are and we go through whatever to try to figure out, oh, this is what I'm passionate about. Oh, and then they start reflecting back and connecting the dots. So I help them do that. I'm working on a couple of collaboration projects doing that same thing. And then my book is Unshakable Courage. It's out on Amazon, or
Nice.
you can find me on my website.
Unshakable Courage. What's that about, real quick?
So Unshakable Courage is about facing reality, releasing your fears, and live with power.
Wow.
It's my story of overcoming a religious cult, and on the other side of that, helping others through the 7 promises of courage. And each of those letters represent the roadmap to overcome fear.
I'm going to end the show in a minute. I'm going to and then I'm going to continue the show, if you don't mind, Kim, because I want to know what the 7 promises of courage are. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Lynda, what are you up to?
Well, currently we're in the process of launching my very first collaboration book, Momentum, 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World. Kim is one of those action takers in this book. And as well as my mentor, Greg Reed. The foreword was written by Don Green, the executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
Very cool guy, yeah.
Yeah, and I have the founder of UGG Boots, Brian Smith, in the book, as well as Ron Klein, inventor of the credit card magnetic strip, and then also Frank Shankwitz, the creator of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I'm sharing those names only because I took action. I reached out to every single one of them. I said, hey, I have this idea to write this book. Will you be in the book? And they all said yes. And I was like, holy crap, now I got to write a book. So it's like, it was the action that I took and I spoke it out there, right? They all said yes. And I was like, I got to do it. It took a little while longer to write than I wanted, but still it was always forward motion, so that's the momentum. And so that book is coming out in August, but then my next project is another collaboration book called Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And that book is 40 inspiring stories from women who have felt invisible in their life, who now feel invincible. So I'm looking to fill that book up. So that's the current project I'm working on.
That's terrific. And you have your Women Action Takers, or is that open?
Women Action Takers. Yeah, I actually have become a publishing house. And there's like a lot of things going on with Women Action Takers. There'll be, the magazine will come out, and then I'll have a symposium, the 24-hour show that I'm going to have. There's, just look for Women Action Takers, because we're going to be taking some massive action, Patrick.
Patrick, how are you doing, brother? Tell us a little about what you got going on, and how, if there's any opportunities for people to participate.
Actually, right now I am illustrating a children's book on love, which I'm really having a lot of fun with, using my grandchildren as the inspiration. And I'm releasing my second coloring book. This coloring book will be on the lads from Liverpool, also maybe known as the Beatles.
Yeah, cool.
All the drawings that I've done from 1964, the day after Ed Sullivan, to current drawings that I've done in the last year. So those are the 2 things I'm passionate about and working on right now.
That's awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can just send you is it going to be somewhere, or should they contact you directly?
Yeah, I'll release it on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the different places that we do. Yes.
That's awesome. Let me get a second. I'll be right back. And I want to ask you those 7 promises of courage, because that's really cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. So I started the whole conversation. I thought I was going to go in one direction. And to me, that's what curiosity is all about, like thinking and maybe focusing on one thing, but then being open to other possibilities. I'll tell you something, maybe about 20, 25 minutes into the conversation, was lost. I was like, I have no idea where this thing's going to go. I'm trying my best to just like, I had no idea. And then I just listened to myself. I listened to my own advice. Be curious, start listening, because in 23 minutes into the show, I was listening to myself. I wasn't listening to my guests. I was trying to go in a direction. How many times in your life have you done that? You want to go in your direction and there's 2 or 3 or 1 person in front of you. And all you got to do is just be curious about what's going on with them. And like Patrick had said, it's like, you might want to go this way, but the possibilities are bigger. So thank you very much. Next week, we'll be here Tuesday night, 7:00 Pacific time. And I want to actually go back because I want to finish this conversation. So the show is over, but we're going to start a new show and talk about the 7 promises of courage. Kim, I'm interested in, what are the 7 promises of courage? Let's start with the first one, and then like everybody to comment, we'll go to the second one. Can we do that?
Sure, absolutely. So the 7 promises of courage, the C is confidence. I say it's the foundation that moves you away from any fear and prevents you from taking action. So confidence.
So what you call competence is, say that one more time. Say it a different
Confidence.
way. Confidence. Okay, so this is what happens in life. We think we hear a word and we're trying to get the definition of a word, and she's saying what she's saying, and I'm thinking she's saying competence. She's saying confidence, right? And I'm trying to fit what she's saying into my definition. And this is one of the things that what I teach the curiosity theory is, you show people is that you were focused on a different word. So words matter, and how somebody defines those words is incredibly important. Kim's just the way her definition is, and Patrick used the word distinction earlier. How she distinguishes the word confidence is going to have it's going to make the difference in, is it going to work or not? Can you apply it? So confidence is the first one. Please tell me again what that was. Thank you for.
Sure. So confidence, it's the foundation that everything else in your life is built upon, that moves you away from any fear or hesitancy.
Cool. How do you look at confidence in that context, Patrick?
I believe it's the responses you get to what you're doing elevates your confidence. You might have some self-talk going on the shoulder, and you just got to knock the dude right off your shoulder. and knocking, by being the ability to knock that person off is the people that you have around you telling you, well, wow, that's really good. Or, okay, you need to change this, like my mother would say to me. And so I believe it's the mentors in our world that gives us confidence. It's the people around us. And it doesn't have to be a per se mentor like a David Corbin or a Greg Reed.
Yeah.
It is the individuals that are around you on a regular basis that you hang around with. And that's why I say, we have to hang around much bigger people than ever, because that gives you that confidence that Kim has. And I love that. I mean, thank you, Kim.
Really cool. Yeah, thanks. It's cool. Lynda, confidence for you. How does that fit into courage?
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree with what they both say, but I also have a different take on it. And that's, confidence, I believe, comes from within, because we need to find that within ourselves. And I say that because I grew up 51 years full of fear, and when I was 51, I decided to face a fear every single day for a year. And it was by me taking that act of facing a fear every day for a year, which helped me gain an exorbitant amount of confidence that I didn't even know was there. I didn't even know it existed. And so now I've gotten to the place where fear doesn't stop me anymore like it did for decades, but I just need to channel that confidence to do it. And I'm not surrounded by mentors right now. I've been at home like everybody else for 4 months, right? So I don't have that mentorship. So what I've done is I've learned to tap into my own self as my own mentorship. And I call it, instead of, because oftentimes I hear people say this all the time, I'm my own worst enemy. Well, I'm like, become your own best cheerleader.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
so so I just have become my own best cheerleader.
Awesome. So I'd say for me, confidence with regard to courage is that part that I know I'm not going to die. Just like that, it can start just a little seed, like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I could do it. Probably not going to die. Kind of like, like if I was going to go to the extreme, and yeah, like, all right, it's where I would convince myself. It's where I would negotiate with myself and go, yeah, all right. That's how I look at confidence. What's the second one?
The second one is ownership. That is getting in and staying in the driver's seat of your life. Self-ownership.
How about say a little bit more about that?
So, so with confidence, you're believing in yourself, and in ownership, you're the driver of your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's like being in a vehicle, right? Yeah. You're in the driver's seat and you have control of the steering wheel, the accelerator, and also the brake.
Got it. Patrick, how do you look at the ownership part of courage, from confidence to ownership?
I would say that when I look at it, ownership for me, it's not waiting for the opportunity. It's creating the opportunity. And so like when I hear Lynda say, well, I don't have mentors around me right now, I'm going, my God, this is the perfect time to contact them because they have a lot more time than normal. All right. And so every day I'm talking to Scott Duffy. Every day I'm talking to David Corbin, and really just interacting in a way that we've never really interacted before because they have the opportunity. So ownership for me is taking ownership of that opportunity.
I love it.
Whatever it might be. Whatever it might be.
Awesome. Cool. You definitely gave me some ideas. So cool.
Yeah,
Lynda.
For me, it's in Jack Canfield's The Success Principles, the number one principle is taking 100% full responsibility for your life. And that's like owning it, right? I own. So the things that I do well, I own. The things that I don't do well, I own. So it's interesting what's happened with my life since I did start to accept that responsibility for my own life, and just stepping into it and saying, it's all about my things that I'm doing in my life that are controlling the outcomes that I'm getting. It has nothing to do with anybody else on the outside.
I love it. I love it how we look at it from different perspectives, and they both have equal value. They both have equal power, and they both have equal truth. You just got to choose which one, and you can choose them both. That's cool. You can have the contrast. We can live in the contrast. Ownership for me is in this context is courage. Like, yeah, it's got to be me. If it's gonna, if not me, then who? It's when it's always me. Like I'm always here in this spirit or whatever, right? It's always this. So at the point that I took ownership for everything, 100%, not like the 50-50 that people say, no, I take ownership for the whole thing. Like I'm getting a divorce. I take ownership for the whole thing, the whole divorce, the whole thing. That's how I look at it. Go ahead. What's the third part?
So the U is unstoppable. This is about trusting your inner power. And to me, it's about that unstoppable feeling is your energy and your aliveness, and you're just powering through without any excuses, or really like there's not even time for an excuse to pop up because you are in such a flow of being unstoppable.
Patrick.
For me, I apply it to the art for me, and to be unstoppable. Let's say I'm going to draw a flower. Okay. I pick a flower up and I look at the stem. I look at the leaves. I look at all of it and feel it and touch it and taste it and actually bring it into my soul, bring it into my heart. That allows it to flow down my right hand or right arm into my right hand, flow through the brush or flow through the pen, and just happens on the paper. Mm-hmm. That creates an unstoppability for me, because the purpose of being an artist today is to be an artist tomorrow. So I have to be unstoppable.
Wow. So you're preparing for tomorrow.
I always preparing for tomorrow.
That's awesome. So
because it's always today, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tomorrow actually never comes.
Yeah.
It's always today. However, yes, I'm preparing.
I love it. Lynda, unstoppable, baby.
What I love about this word is that it doesn't have a context of expediency, time. It doesn't. So when we were writing this book, this is a great example, because I had so many opportunities, or I had so many thoughts in my mind that I wanted to stop, because I didn't feel like it was moving fast enough for everybody else. And I felt like I was failing them. But then I would wake up in the morning, I'd be like, just keep going, just keep going. We're gonna finish it. It might not be in my time, it might not be in their time, but we are going to finish it because we are unstoppable. So I think sometimes, to me, the word unstoppable seems like a fast moving word, but in reality, it's not about that. It's about taking those steps to move forward.
That's awesome. When I was a little kid, I just had an idea. I just had dreams, and I knew that my life was going to be bigger than I could picture it. Like I pictured my life a particular way, and I knew, just probably 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9, about 7 or 8. The way that I had pictured out, the view that I had for how it was going to turn out, I wasn't down with. And I just decided that I was going to be unstoppable. I didn't decide I was going to be unstoppable. I just wanted to do something different. I didn't know what that was. And the quality I think that that I've had to have was to be unstoppable. It's kind of like, it's just not going to happen. Stopping's not going to happen. What's next there?
So the fourth promise of courage is R, and that's all about relationships. It's about creating your connected community. It's having mentors. It's surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you to a higher level that you can also pour into. And I think that is one of the most crucial things. We can't be on an island by ourselves, We have to have those relationships and nurture those. And we do that through creating a connected community.
Awesome. Patrick.
I totally agree with Kim on that. Our lives are all about being in relationships and creating opportunities. Relationships build us up to thrive, and we really are not taught that as a youngster, how to really delve into and be in a relationship. And I think personally that it has to be taught at the elementary school level and allow us to be in awe of friendship, be in awe of love, be in awe of the opportunities we have to build a core group of people. As I said earlier, I believe life is a team sport. Let's build the team.
I love it. I love it how everybody's you can hear how people have their life work, and every explanation keeps bringing that back in. Like Patrick's is about community and all that, and Lynda sources it from herself. It's kind of like we have these missions, and we define and we hear everything that's said through that, and then we redefine it for ourselves, and then we push it back out. How do you? What's up with relationships with you, Mrs. Relationship?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because relationships, or like you were talking about mentorship and stuff, right? It's interesting because I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about when I was younger and how I had mentors in my life at that time too, but they weren't going down the right path, you know? So I went down the path. Right, they were mentors. They were still mentors in my life. They just weren't mentoring me for what was my best use of my life, or the best use of their life. And so as I got older and I started hanging around you guys, my life changed in that my mentors were now forward thinking. My mentors were now big thinkers, were people who were truly making a positive impact on the planet. And it really helped me to see that there was so much more to me than I imagined. And I'm just beginning. I'm just a baby at all this stuff. So I highly believe in building those relationships and having those mentors in your path. Yeah.
I would say for me, the promise, how that relates to courage for me, is it's the support systems. It's the support systems that your relationships have. When you say you're going to do something, if you are your word, if you can honor your word, then you say it to certain people, and then they hear you as your word. And people that can hear you as your word are people that honor themselves as the word. So having those relationships that we speak into, like Lynda saying, say what you want to say. Earlier you said you say it, and then now you got to do it, right? Because you speak to people that honor themselves and honor you. And I hear the 12 people that are in Patrick's his mastermind. What I sense is that there's honor in that, there's integrity, because and Patrick's not going to have these words. These words don't exist here. When we take these words out in the relationships, now the relationship's going to raise, because the vibration of that whole relationship, and he's, like you said, I think you said 330, 3,000, 3 million, it's just going to grow exponentially. It's a beautiful tree. So relationships, I like that. It's really cool. What's next?
The fifth promise is the A, and that's action. Oh, so it's taking sometimes we have to take a different action in order to have a different result. And, I think we all agree that someday is not coming. We have to go out there and create whatever that thing is by taking action.
Patrick, action with regard to courage.
Well, I believe our strength. Well, let's talk about a lion. The legs on a lion feed the lion, because he runs in action.
Yeah.
Okay. So our strength comes from our foundation, and all the things that she's just been talking about is that foundation. Mm-hmm. And if we build that foundation, it doesn't matter what action we have to take. We can take it. We can step up and take it, because of the foundation. Because, if you listen to Will Smith, he does this great video about building a brick wall that his parents had him build, his father had him build. However, he did it one brick at a time, and each brick had to be perfect to build the foundation. So when we build that foundation, why not do the same thing and create a perfect brick, the foundation, to be able to take that action?
I love it. Lynda.
Sometimes inaction is the action we need to take, right? So it's like sometimes I find myself, sometimes I'll call myself the Tasmanian devil. He just spins around and he's spinning around. He's not getting anywhere really, right? And then he stops. And sometimes I realize that I need to do that. I need to take that step, the action of going into inaction, so that I can refocus myself and figure out where am I going and how am I going to get there. And it takes courage. It takes courage to go into inaction if you're an action taker. That's for sure.
I love it. So action, I wrote this down, and it's not a good sentence, but it's the way I think. Action is close to almost the only thing we always need. It's like that important. It's like it might not be the only thing, but it's darn close. It's darn close. And I say that because if courage is an action, then I need to be in action. And it's for me, everything that I want to accomplish requires an action. Requires either to me to change who I am, change the way I operate, grow, all those things. So I'd say it's almost close to almost the only thing.
I love that.
Thank you. And then a G, what's the G?
So the sixth promise is G, and that's all about gratitude. I believe that gratitude is truly the gateway to your desires. And I say that because even in that situation that I was in, sitting on a pew in that evil place, I was thankful and grateful for my parents, even though I wasn't able to see them, with the belief that one day I would be reunited with them. I would be reunited with friends, and that all of that would be over. And I thought that that would come from a change that those people would eventually wake up to and move. And so, like, just having gratitude for those things that I wanted, actually came to pass. It just came to pass a little bit different on the other side of that experience. And I think we probably all have something similar to that. But being in gratitude and being thankful for the blessings every single day, I just think that's the gateway to anything that we could desire for ourselves.
That's awesome. Thank you. Patrick, gratitude with regard to courage.
I believe that, I believe we have to double down on gratitude. It gets us to focus on what we actually have rather than what we don't. And so I was taught by Scott Duffy to set a gratitude alarm. And when it goes off, we have to thank the universe for three things. And we set it for, I have it set for 6 a.m. and I have it set for 6 p.m. And you do that every day. And you know, I was taught to do it for 30 days, and then it became 6 days, became 90 days, and then it became a habit. Because it takes 7 days for the brain to know it's a good idea, and 21 days to create the new superhighway, and then 90 to make it habit. So
that explains a lot.
I mean, what would it? Yeah, I mean, I there's a guy that comes to Secret Knock. His name is Jeff Fannin, and he's a neuroscientist, and he's taught us some really things, and he's done some brain scans of my brain, and it's very interesting to see how it fires. But getting back to the gratitude, what would it look like if you loved yourself in gratitude the way you love your kids or your grandkids?
Very good. Yeah. I'm going to let them think about that. So, Lynda.
That's actually a perfect segue, Patrick, to what I'm going to say, because gratitude, like I have gratitude for those around me. I have gratitude for the people in my life. I have gratitude for the things in my life. But the one thing that I realized that I was missing big time in my own personal growth, because, again, when you're told you're stupid and ignorant for so long, how do you get out of that and move into, you know what, I'm actually a very smart person. I'm actually very confident. How do you move into that? I had to teach myself to have gratitude for myself. And that went from things like, for example, I hired a life coach. And I had to thank myself, say, Lynda, you need to thank yourself for allowing yourself to hire a life coach. You need to thank yourself for allowing yourself to attend Secret Knock. So I started, being in gratitude to myself for the things I was allowing me to do that I didn't believe I deserved. And so it's kind of a different take on the whole gratitude thing. But Patrick volleyed it right on over to me. Thank you.
That's great. I love that. I think the gratitude for me, it makes me focus on what's the truth, like what's true, and encourage. What I mean by that is being grateful for the tools I have, the friends I have, the resources I have, who I've become, what I've gone through. And I look at the hill or I look at the challenge and I go, yeah, all right, cool. And the gratitude follows along with that for me. It follows along And I would not have defined any of this stuff before, guys. Like seriously, so thank you. It gives me the opportunity to go, yeah, like I have qualities that can do that. It's a part of the whole thing. And I like the way that Patrick was talking about it, how it makes you focus, makes you be real focused. And then I took that and I was like, well, what does it make me focus? It makes me focus on the truth, like who I am, because to go after something big, to really have the confidence, the ownership, be unstoppable, to have the relationships to support you and be in action. There's got to be some degree of belief. It's kind of like this circle that just goes around, and I'm grateful for the belief. And maybe I don't 100% believe that I am that, but I'm going to operate. I'm going to move forward as though that it is. And I'm grateful for at least the thought of that as being possible. What's the last one? What's the E?
So the seventh promise of courage, the E is empowered. This is about helping others from who you are. It's about having your vision and your mission and how you serve and help others from who you are. Mm-hmm. So empowered.
Patrick.
Yeah, it's wonderful to think about, because what we need to be when we're empowered is to be a true asset.
Yes.
How can we hold space for those that are in our life or in our industry? How do you add value? During a one-on-one connection, that's empowering. Be the most relevant person in your space. Be relevant of service for the individuals in your life.
Yeah. Beautiful. Lynda.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and empowerment is something that I didn't realize until just, maybe a year or so ago. That was something that I kind of do naturally for people, because now, I wasn't always like this, right? But like lifting people up, and that's why like Women Action Takers was born, was because I was always putting other people up. And I realized that part of that was me stepping into a leadership role that I didn't know. I never thought of myself as a leader. Uh-huh. And it's really cool, because when you empower others, you empower yourself. When you lift others, you lift yourself up also. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being able to say something or do something where somebody is like, wow, thank you so much. You gave me the courage to do that. Yeah. And I just love it. It's amazing.
One of the things we talk about in the curiosity theory, we use Marshall Rosenberg's quote, where he says, everything we do, we do in service of our needs. Like, it's all about us. So if I think of the word empowerment, and I take a look at that and completely look at myself in that, I would say that empowerment is where I get to look at myself and go, that's like me. Like, that's the courage thing. It's like, I did that. That's like me. And the empowerment happens on the way up. If we don't take I think if we don't take a moment to acknowledge and to go through this process and look and see what we've become by the things that we've done, the things that we've gone through, the courage that it's taken us to, whoever you are in this world, in this moment, I don't know, I promise you, it has taken courage to get to this moment, because life requires courage. Life requires confidence. It requires all these things. Now, you might be out there saying, I don't have a whole lot of it, but you got it. You got some, and you may only need it when you think you need it. And your internal conversation, maybe you don't have it, but I haven't met anybody that doesn't have it. I haven't met a single person that doesn't live in what it is to be in life, whether it's beat you down or whether it has you, winning the Olympics. Life requires courage. Life requires all these things. And I think empowerment is so beautiful that you add this, Kim, because empowerment is that place where you, like I said, you look back and you go, that's like me. I'm the guy that does that. I'm the girl that does that. I'm the dad. I'm the son. I'm the brother, whatever that is. That's like me.
Love that.
Well, wrap it up, Kim, because this is on you,
I don't know if you can see this, but this is, so this is the graphic. just showing once you have all of these 7 promises of courage working together, you're in the flow.
Mm.
And this is where action takes place. When you're in the flow and you're taking action, all those things are available to you.
That's awesome. I want to thank you guys for hanging out an extra half hour. I usually try to end like right before an hour, but Lynda, Kim, you threw something out and like forget it. Like I had to it was too good. So I'm going to cut this up and I have it in 2 different parts. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Kim Glass. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for stepping up. Thanks for having the courage. Thanks for being in action and stepping up the last minute. Patrick, were you going to say something or are you saying goodbye?
I totally enjoyed it. Thanks very much for having us.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. Lynda, I love you as always. We got to do
Thank you.
We got to get back and do some Thrive Talks, huh?
I know, we're going to do it. We got to take action on that.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for hanging out.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.